Good morning, my name is Heather Breedlove, and I'm going to be teaching a lesson today on character and setting using the book Corduroy. Good morning, boys and girls. Today we're going to be talking about two important parts of a story. The first one are characters, and the second one are setting. All good authors have characters and setting in their stories. Now, can anybody tell me what characters are? You're right, characters are who the story is about. Now, the characters in a story can be people or animals. And we can have animals. Okay, now the second thing we're going to be talking about is the setting. Does anyone know what the setting is? The setting is where the story takes place. Can anybody think of any examples of setting or where a story could take place? Right. We could have a school. We could have outside. A story could take place in someone's home. There are many, many places where stories can take place, and the setting helps us understand what's happening in the story. Now today we're going to be reading a book called Corduroy, and I want you to be paying attention to who the characters are and what the setting is, where the story is taking place. So here we have Corduroy. Corduroy is a bear who once lived in the toy department of a big store. Day after day, he waited with all the other animals and dolls for somebody to come along and take him home. The store was always filled with shoppers buying all sorts of things, but no one ever seemed to want a small bear in green overalls. Let's stop for a second. Can someone tell me who they think the main character is? Right, the main character is Corduroy, and we can tell that because so far the story's been all about Corduroy. Then one morning, a little girl stopped and looked straight into Corduroy's bright eyes. "Oh, Mommy," she said, "look, there's the very bear I've always wanted." "Not today, dear," her mother sighed. "I've spent too much already. Besides, he doesn't look new. He's lost a button to one of his shoulder straps." Corduroy watched them sadly as they walked away. "I didn't know I'd lost a button," he said to himself. "Tonight I'll go and see if I can find it." And let's stop again and think about where is the story taking place. Right, the setting is in a store. Late that evening, when all the shoppers had gone and the doors were shut and locked, Corduroy climbed carefully down from a shelf and began searching everywhere on the floor for his lost button. Suddenly, he felt the floor moving under him. Quite by accident, he had stepped onto an escalator, and up he went. Could this be a mountain, he wondered? I think I've always wanted to climb a mountain. He stepped off the escalator as it reached the next floor, and there before his eyes was the most amazing sight. Tables and chairs and lamps and sofas and rows of beds. "This must be a palace," Corduroy gasped. "I guess I've always wanted to live in a palace." Now, is he really in a palace, or where is the setting still taking place? Right, he's still in the store. He wandered around admiring the furniture. "This must be a bed," he said. "I've always wanted to sleep in a bed." And he he jumped up and crawled in a large, thick mattress. All at once, he saw something small and round. "Why, here's my button," he cried, and he tried to pick it up. But like all the other buttons on the mattress, it was tied down tight. He yanked and pulled with both paws until pop, off came the button, and off came the mattress. Corduroy toppled, bang, into a tall floor lamp. Over it fell with a crash. Corduroy didn't know it, but there was someone else awake in the store. The night watchman was going on his rounds on the floor above. When he heard the crash, he came dashing down the escalator. "Now who in the world did that?" he exclaimed. "Somebody must be hiding around here." He flashed his light under and over sofas and beds until he came to the biggest bed of all. And there he saw 2 fuzzy brown ears sticking up from under the cover. "Hello," he said. "How did you get upstairs?" The watchman tucked Corduroy under his arm and carried him down the escalator and set him on the shelf in the toy department with the other animals and dolls. Corduroy was just waking up when the first customers came into the store the next morning, and there, looking at him with a wide, warm smile, was the little girl he'd seen the day before. "I'm Lisa," she said, "and you're going to be my very own bear. Last night I counted what I'd saved in my piggy bank, and my mother said I could bring you home." "Shall I put him in a box for you?" the sales lady asked. "Oh, no, thank you," Lisa answered, and she carried Corduroy home in her arms. She ran all the way up 4 flights of stairs into her family's apartment and straight into her own room. Corduroy blinked. There was a chair and a chest of drawers, and alongside a girl-sized bed stood a little bed the right size for him. The room was small, nothing like that enormous palace in the department store. "This must be home," he said. "I know I've always wanted a home." Lisa sat down with Corduroy on her lap and began to sew a button on his overalls. "I like you the way you are," she said, "but you'll be more comfortable with your shoulder strap fastened." "You must be a friend," said Corduroy. "I've always wanted a friend." "Me too," said Lisa, and gave him a big hug. Okay, now let's think about, we have our title of our book, which is Corduroy. And let's think about who the characters were in the story. Right, the first most important character was Corduroy, because the whole story was about Corduroy's adventure in the store. Now, who's another important character? Right, we had Lisa, and what did Lisa do? Good, Lisa took the Corduroy home. Who is another character that we saw in the story? Right, the night watchman. And he's important because he found Corduroy and brought him back to the toy department. Okay, now let's think about the setting. And remember, the setting was where the story takes place. So where was the first part that we saw the story taking place? Good. Corduroy was in the store. And at the end of the story, how did the setting change? Where was the story taking place at the end? Very good, in Lisa's apartment. And that's important to remember because we know that Corduroy finally got a home like he'd always wanted. Okay, boys and girls, you did very well with this today, so let's review one more time. What are characters when we're talking about a story? Right, the characters who the story is about. And what's the setting again? Very good, the setting is where the story takes place.